Welcome to Trigger Warning. It largely depends on who you ask. The moniker itself sounds laudable, to be honest. People who fight for an end to racism, to sexism, and discrimination based on sexual orientation is a cause worth fighting for. However, a social justice warrior is far removed from that fight. For the most part, people who use this descriptor aren't fighting against social injustice, but are rather using the term as a shield against criticism. In many cases, they tend to misrepresent what social justice is actually about. Instead of blaming racists, sexists, or transphobic individuals, they tend to blame one particular demographic for all of the world's ills, and that tends to be straight white males. Social justice warriors, or SJWs for short, is described by the Urban Dictionary as a pejorative term for people who repeatedly and vehemently engage in arguments on social justice on the internet, often in a shallow and not well thought out way for the purposes of raising their own personal reputation. They tend to engage in a decidedly cult-like mentality, often repeating the mantra that they're activists, despite the fact that they rarely appear in public en masse. They typically repeat talking points from whoever might be the most recognizable face or popular blogger on the internet based on their opinion, which is rarely based on fact. A social justice warrior usually adopts a type of stance that many of my previous videos have addressed. They may identify strongly with one topic over others, but in many cases they tend to toe the SJW line and speak about the same topics that the rest of the social justice warrior groups tend to talk about. Things like the fat acceptance movement, online feminism, racism, and transgendered issues tend to be big topics. A good example is their absolute denial that racism can exist against white people, or that men can face sexism. They've been known to claim that men, as a rule, are evil and misogynistic, but tend to excuse when women are misandrist, even going so far as to claim that women and minorities are completely justified even when they commit heinous crimes, going so far as even murder and rape, so long as they're against straight white males, some as young as infants. They've even been known to call for the absolute genocide of people who aren't part of an oppressed minority. They take any sort of criticism, even constructive criticism, as a personal attack against the ideals of social justice, when in most cases, it's not even happening. People who are vehemently against racism, sexism, or discrimination against homosexual or transgendered persons, in fact, often get attacked by these people. And on the occasion that some of them dissent from the rest of the group, they're then subjected to campaigns of online hatred, even to the point of death and rape threats against them and their families. As such, it has become increasingly difficult to tell the difference between them. For the most part, yes. However, kids grow up to become adults. They graduate high school and go to university, and in most cases they actually grow out of the social justice warrior mentality. But some don't. Some go on to earn degrees, and with those degrees earn high-profile positions where they have influence. Others become self-made and sometimes become journalists. And journalists, as you know, are in the unique position where they can affect a whole new generation of social justice warriors. And even worse, the self-made ones often help other social justice warriors gain positions in their companies or projects. But the mentality remains ever the same. They speak of fighting against oppression, but oftentimes end up shifting the oppression towards another class of people. There are numerous examples of what happens when a social justice warrior gains public notoriety. One is the example of Sui Park, a young Asian woman who recently gained popularity for calling out Stephen Colbert on what she perceived was a racist joke. She created the Cancel Colbert hashtag in response, and had it trending to an untold degree. The reality of the situation, however, is that Colbert was responding in a satirical manner to somebody else who was actually being racist against Native Americans. She later threatened another person who actually had a history of anti-racist activism with another hashtag campaign, all because he happened to be a white male. Despite that, Sui has over 25,000 followers on Twitter. Another example is Anita Sarkeesian of Feminist Frequency. Anita has in the past admitted to not being a gamer. But despite this, she raised over $160,000 on a Kickstarter campaign designed specifically for the purpose of criticizing games for being misogynist. Most gamers, including female and even feminist gamers, saw right through it. And some actually called her out on it. Some more vocally than others. But instead of accepting the criticism, Anita took the worst examples of people disagreeing with her project and used them as proof that what she was doing was needed. At this time, several of the most popular gaming websites were infested by journalists that adhered to the social justice warrior standard. As a result, she managed to raise almost $160,000 to support her Tropes vs. Women video series, in which she offered criticisms of video games from a social justice standpoint. In her videos, she has consistently misrepresented certain video games, claiming them to be misogynistic, and then disabled comments on her videos and has steadfastly refused to respond to any criticisms. Additionally, she's also been accused of stealing artwork and gameplay footage from other YouTubers. And more recently, we have the Gamergate scandal, in which a young woman who adheres to the social justice warrior line of thinking was found to have been sleeping with a games journalist who gave her favorable coverage on her project. So instead of responding for the cries for integrity within the games journalism industry, social justice warriors have attempted to reframe all criticisms to being about this young lady's sexual history, when that's really not the case. In many cases, her name isn't even brought up. However, it has not stopped social justice warriors or the games journalism industry from attempting to frame it that way. The reality is that gamers are angry because now we have proof that there are conflicts of interest within the games journalism industry. In short, over the past decade or so, social justice warriors have managed to gain real-world influence. And they're beginning to shape certain industries to their personal brand of politics through journalism and media. Most notably are their attacks on Hollywood and gaming culture. They have accused some otherwise innocent game developers and writers of some pretty heinous things, most of which are untrue. Their personal brand of politics have gone on to ruin the lives and livelihoods of many, usually based on false accusations of misogyny, transphobia, and other things. All the while shifting eyes away from their own actions, some of which have been arguably worse than those they're accusing. And in one notable case, they attempted and nearly succeeded in shuttering a game jam designed specifically to help female game developers get their projects off the ground, simply because it did not adhere to their particular brand of social justice warrior politics. Unfortunately, the social justice warrior attitude is here to stay. There's always going to be people who take social justice too far. But we might be able to make a dent on their inordinate influence. We can boycott sites that pander to SJW mindsets, which I encourage our viewers to talk about in the comment section below. We can offer support to bloggers, journalists, and YouTubers who speak for true values. We can fight against racism, sexism, and discrimination against all types of people, regardless of color, class, or creed, and not just the people that the SJWs say are the oppressed minorities. You can share this video and others like it on social media, and you can encourage people to stay true to their actual values and not have to jump aboard the SJW mindset. In particular, though, I'd like to plug a Patreon project entitled The Sarkeesian Effect, started by a couple of YouTubers. The film is actually designed to bring global awareness to social justice warriors. So if you have a few extra dollars to spare, please help the project get off the ground. For more information, you can check out the video right here, or click the link down below to the Patreon page. Anyways guys, thanks again for watching. As always, my name is EJ Spurl, and if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe below, and I will see you next time. Atheism Plus hit the scene back in 2012, and for all intents and purposes seems to be a feminist wing of atheism. Or an atheist wing of feminism, to be honest.